The screen door slammed behind me, and I could hear the bass thumping before I'd even reached the porch steps. Loud voices carried across the water, and through the cabin windows, I could see silhouettes moving against the warm interior lights. It was supposed to be my sanctuary. My refuge. The place Robert and I had spent 40 summers together. I stood there in the driveway for a moment, my overnight bag heavy in my hand, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It was barely 6 in the evening, the June sun still painting the lake in shades of amber and gold. I'd driven 4 hours from the city, looking forward to a quiet weekend, looking forward to sitting on the dock with my morning coffee, the way Robert and I used to do. Instead, my nephew Derek's truck was parked in what had always been Robert's spot. I climbed the steps slowly, my heart sinking with each creak of the old wood. The door was unlocked. Inside, the cabin was transformed. Derek stood in the kitchen, gesturing expansively to 3 people I'd never seen before. Empty beer bottles cluttered the counter where I usually kept fresh flowers. The radio was turned up so loud I could feel it in my chest. "Aunt Maggie!" Derek spotted me, his face breaking into that charming smile that had always gotten him out of trouble. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling me into a hug that smelled like beer and cologne. "You're early. I thought you weren't coming until tomorrow." "I told you Friday," I said quietly, setting my bag down. "This Friday. Today." "Oh man, sorry." He didn't look sorry. He turned to his friends, who were now staring at me with varying degrees of interest. "Guys, this is my aunt, Aunt Maggie. This is Brad, Melissa, and Tony. We were just having a little welcome to summer thing. Welcome to summer. In my cabin." Without asking, "Derek," I kept my voice level, "could we talk for a moment?" Outside, he followed me onto the deck, and I noticed he brought his beer with him. The lake stretched out before us, peaceful, despite the chaos inside. A loon called somewhere in the distance. "You can't just show up here without asking," I said. He leaned against the railing, that easy smile still in place. "Come on, Aunt Maggie. You told me last month I could use the place this summer. Remember? You said I was always welcome. I said you were welcome to visit, not to throw parties, not to treat it like it's yours." Something flickered across his face, too quick for me to read. "Right. Of course. Sorry." He took a sip of his beer. "It's just, you're only here on weekends anyway. Seems like a waste for such a great place to sit empty all week." I'd heard variations of this before. After Robert died 3 years ago, people kept telling me the cabin was too much for me. Too much space. Too much maintenance. Too much memory. Maybe I should sell. Maybe I should downsize. Maybe, at 66, I should simplify my life. But this cabin wasn't just property. It was where Robert proposed, where we'd celebrated every anniversary, where we'd watched eagles nest in the tall pine by the shore, where his ashes were scattered, according to his wishes, on a morning much like this one. "We'll keep it down," Derek promised. "Scout's honor, and we'll be out of here by Sunday night." What else could I say? He was my sister Caroline's son. After she died 7 years ago, I'd tried to be there for him, helped with the funeral costs, co-signed his first apartment lease, lent him money more times than I could count, for emergencies that were always someone else's fault. "Sunday night," I repeated. "And Derek, please. The photos in the main room, Robert's fishing pictures. Don't move them." "Wouldn't dream of it, Aunt Maggie." But when I went back inside, I noticed the photos were already stacked on the side table, replaced by a Bluetooth speaker. I spent that night in the guest room, listening to laughter and music through the thin walls, wondering how I'd lost control of my own space so quickly. The next morning, I woke early to silence. Derek's friends had apparently left. I made coffee and carried it down to the dock, trying to reclaim some peace. The lake was glass smooth, reflecting the pink sky. A family of mergansers paddled past, the mother leading 6 tiny ducklings in a perfect line. James appeared around the side of the cabin around 8, his toolbox in hand. He'd been taking care of the property for 15 years, since before Robert got sick. He was maybe 55, with weathered hands and kind eyes that missed nothing. "Morning, Margaret," he said, using my actual name the way he always did, never the diminutive everyone else used. Saw the truck. Didn't know you were expecting company. I wasn't. I sipped my coffee. My nephew decided to throw a party. James's expression didn't change, but something in his silence spoke volumes. He'd known Derek since Derek was a teenager. He'd seen the pattern I was only beginning to recognize. Well, he said finally, I'm just going to check the dock supports while I'm here. Won't take long. I watched him work, methodical and careful, the way he approached everything. Robert had trusted James completely. That man, Robert used to say, has more integrity in his little finger than most people have in their whole body. Derek emerged around 10, looking remarkably fresh despite the previous night's festivities. He joined me on the deck, coffee in hand, and for a few minutes we sat in companionable silence. Aunt Maggie, he said eventually, I wanted to talk to you about something, an opportunity. I should have known. There was always an opportunity, always an angle. I've been thinking, he continued, about your situation, living alone in the city, driving up here on weekends. It's a lot for you. I manage fine. I'm sure you do. But you're not getting any younger. He said it gently, concern dripping from every word. What happens in 5 years? For 10. This place requires upkeep. The dock needs work. The roof's getting old. The septic system is probably due for replacement. James had mentioned none of these things. James, who would have told me if there were any real issues. I'm thinking, Derek continued, what if you let me help? Put my name on the deed. That way, if anything happens to you, everything's already in order. No probate, no legal fees, and I can start taking on more of the maintenance costs. I looked at him carefully. You want me to put your name on the deed, just for estate planning purposes. Makes everything simpler. He smiled. Plus, it would mean a lot to me. This place, it's one of my last connections to Mom. You know how much she loved it here. That was true. Caroline had loved this cabin. But Caroline had also understood it was mine and Robert's sanctuary. She'd always asked before visiting, always brought groceries, always left the place cleaner than she'd found it. Derek was not his mother. I'll think about it, I said. His smile widened. That's all I ask. The rest of the weekend was bearable. Derek cleaned up, disposed of the beer bottles, even put Robert's photos back. By Sunday evening, when he left, I almost convinced myself I'd overreacted. Then Tuesday, Linda called. Linda had been my best friend for 30 years. We'd met at a faculty mixer when I first started teaching at the university. She was in the English department. I was in history. We'd supported each other through marriages, divorces, tenure battles, and everything life threw at us. She'd held my hand through Robert's funeral. I'd done the same when her marriage fell apart. Maggie, she said, her voice warm and familiar. I heard from Derek. He told me about his idea for the cabin. Did he? I kept my voice neutral. Honey, I think you should seriously consider it. He makes some good points. I frowned. When did you talk to Derek? Oh, he called yesterday. He's worried about you. We both are. We. When had Derek and Linda become a we? The thing is, Linda continued, you're living too big for this stage of your life. The cabin. That huge house in the city. What do you need all that space for? I like my space. I know, but be practical. And Derek's family, Maggie, he deserves to have some security, some stake in his future. I'd lent Linda money too, over the years. She'd paid most of it back, but not all. There was still about $8,000 outstanding from when her furnace died 3 years ago. I need to go, I said. I'll call you later, but I didn't call her later. Instead, I sat in Robert's study, looking at the photos on the wall. Robert on the dock, with a northern pike. Robert and me on our wedding day. Robert, 3 months before he died, thinner but still smiling. Still him. What's happening? I asked the empty room. Over the next 2 weeks, the pressure intensified. Derek started showing up at my house in the city, always with a new reason why adding his name to the deed made sense. He brought printouts about estate planning, articles about probate costs, statistics about elderly people struggling with property maintenance. I'm not elderly, I told him. Of course not. But you have to think ahead. Linda called every few days, always to reinforce Derek's points. She suggested I was being stubborn, sentimental, unrealistic about my capabilities. You need to think about what's best for everyone, she said, not just yourself. Then Derek brought a realtor. I was at the cabin for the weekend when a woman in a sharp suit appeared at the door, business card in hand. Derek stood behind her, looking sheepish. I'm so sorry to intrude, Mrs. Chen, the woman said. Your nephew mentioned you might be interested in a property valuation. Just for insurance purposes, of course. I didn't request a valuation. Derek stepped forward. I thought it would be helpful, Aunt Maggie. You know, for planning purposes. The realtor, Lisa, was already looking around, making mental calculations I could practically see in her eyes. This is a beautiful property. Prime location. I'd estimate, conservatively, you're looking at $750, maybe $800,000. $800,000. I saw Derek's expression change, just for a moment. Hunger. Need. Calculation. Thank you for your time, I said firmly. But I'm not interested. Lisa left her card anyway. Derek stayed. 800,000, he said softly. Aunt Maggie, do you realize what that means? You could sell this place, buy a nice condo, and still have $500,000 in the bank. You'd never have to worry about money again. I don't worry about money now, but you could. What if you get sick? What if you need care? This is an asset, just sitting here. It's not an asset. It's my home. His face hardened, just for a second. Mom would want you to think of me, to make sure I'm taken care of. Your mother, I wanted to say, would be horrified by what you're doing. But I didn't. I just asked him to leave. He did, but not before suggesting one more time that we meet with his lawyer to discuss options. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the cabin in the darkness, touching familiar surfaces. The kitchen counter where Robert always made his famous blueberry pancakes. The reading nook where I'd graded thousands of papers. The bedroom window that framed the sunrise perfectly. Someone had been here, recently. Things were moved. Subtle changes, but changes. The drawer in the side table was open slightly. Papers on the desk were out of order, my heart racing. I checked the desk more carefully. The folder where I kept the deed was there, but it had been moved. The property tax statements were on top when I always kept them on the bottom. Derek had a key. I'd given it to him years ago, for emergencies. I sat down heavily in Robert's old chair. The leather was worn smooth from years of use, still shaped to his body. I could almost feel him there, his hand on my shoulder. What would you do? I asked him silently. And then, as clearly as if he'd spoken aloud, I'd protect what's ours. Monday morning, I called my lawyer. Sarah Matthews had handled Robert's estate and my will. She was sharp, thorough, and had no patience for nonsense. Tell me everything, she said. I did. The pressure from Derek. Linda's involvement. The realtor. The sense that my own papers had been rifled through. Have you signed anything? Sarah asked. No. Good. Don't. Not even if Derek presents you with something that looks official. She paused. Margaret, I'm going to be blunt. This sounds like elder financial abuse. It's more common than you'd think, and family members are often the perpetrators. Elder financial abuse. The words felt ugly in my mouth. I want you to do something for me, Sarah continued. I want you to pull Derek's financial records. You co-signed his apartment lease, right? That means you can request a credit check. I want to know what we're dealing with. It took 3 days. When the report came back, I sat in Sarah's office, staring at the numbers. Derek was $63,000 in debt. Credit cards maxed out. A loan from a payday lender at 28% interest. Court judgments for unpaid medical bills. And notes in the file about gambling addiction, including a small notation about self-exclusion from 2 local casinos. He's desperate, Sarah said quietly. And desperate people do desperate things. What about Linda? I asked. Sarah pulled up another file. I did some digging. She's not in debt, but she's not in great shape either. Retirement account depleted. She took early Social Security. There's a judgment against her from a landlord for unpaid rent. She never told me. People don't when they're ashamed. Sarah leaned forward. Margaret, I think you need to prepare for the possibility that your friend and your nephew are working together. If Derek has promised her a cut of whatever he gets from you, or if he's paying her to influence you, this could get complicated. My stomach turned. Linda wouldn't. I hope you're right. But 30 years of friendship can't compete with financial desperation. Not for everyone. Sarah laid out a plan. First, change the locks at both the cabin and my city house. Second, create an irrevocable trust for the cabin, with a trustee who wasn't family. Third, document everything. Fourth, prepare for confrontation. And Margaret, she said as I was leaving, do you have anyone who could be trustee? Someone you trust absolutely? I thought about James. 15 years of loyal service. Never late, never complained, never asked for anything beyond fair pay for fair work. When Robert was dying, James had come by twice a week, just to sit with him, to talk about fishing and boats and the eagles in the pine tree, asking nothing, offering everything. Yes, I said, I know exactly who. I called James that evening. We met at a coffee shop in town, neutral territory. James, I said, I need to ask you something unusual. I explained the situation. All of it. Derek's pressure, Linda's involvement, the debt, the desperation, the fear that I was about to lose something precious. I'm setting up an irrevocable trust, I said. The cabin will go into it. I'll retain lifetime use. But after that, it goes to a land conservancy. It can never be sold, never developed. It'll stay wild, the way Robert wanted. James listened, his weathered face thoughtful. I need a trustee, I continued. Someone who'll make sure the terms are followed. Someone I can trust, absolutely. I know it's a lot to ask, but James, you're the only person I can think of who loved that land the way Robert and I do. He was quiet for a long moment. What would that involve? Legally, you'd have authority over the property. You'd maintain it, make decisions about repairs, handle the insurance and taxes from the trust fund I'm setting up. After I'm gone, you'd work with the conservancy to ensure the transition happens smoothly. And until then, you'd have the right to live there. You and your family. Rent-free. I've seen your wife, James. I've met your grandchildren. The cabin needs people who'll love it. People who'll watch the eagles and teach the little ones to fish and understand why places like that matter. His eyes were bright. Margaret, I don't know what to say. Say you'll help me protect it. He reached across the table and took my hand. His grip was warm, calloused, solid. I'd be honored. The next week moved quickly. Sarah drew up the papers. I transferred the deed to the trust. James signed on as trustee. We set up a maintenance account with enough funds to cover 20 years of taxes and upkeep. And then I called Derek. I've been thinking about what you said, I told him. About estate planning. You're right. I need to get my affairs in order. I could hear the smile in his voice. I'm so glad you're being sensible about this, Aunt Maggie. I've arranged a meeting with my lawyer on Friday. 2:00. Can you make it? Absolutely. Should I bring anything? Just yourself. I paused. Actually, Derek, would you mind if Linda came too? I'd like her there for support. Of course. That's a great idea. I'll call her. I hung up and sat very still. Robert's photograph looked at me from the mantel. In it, he was laughing, holding up a fish, the cabin visible in the background. I'm protecting what's ours, I told him. I'm protecting our home. Friday arrived clear and bright. I dressed carefully. In the Navy suit, Robert always said made me look like I meant business. I drove to Sarah's office an hour early. Are you ready for this? Sarah asked. I don't know, but I'm doing it anyway. Derek arrived exactly on time, Linda beside him. They both smiled when they saw me, warm and encouraging. Linda hugged me, and I felt a pang of grief for the friendship I was about to lose. Thank you for coming, I said. We settled into Sarah's conference room. Sarah had laid out a folder, impressively thick, in the center of the table. So, Derek said, rubbing his hands together, What are we looking at? Quitclaim deed? Transfer on death? Sarah opened the folder. Actually, Mr. Chen, we're here to inform you of decisions Mrs. Chen has already made regarding her property. Derek's smile faltered. Already made? The cabin property has been placed in an irrevocable trust. Mrs. Chen retains lifetime use, but she no longer owns it outright. Therefore, it cannot be sold, mortgaged, or transferred. The room went very quiet. What? Derek's voice was sharp. When did this happen? Last Tuesday, Sarah said calmly. All legal and properly filed. Linda leaned forward. Maggie, what are you doing? We're trying to help you. Are you? I looked at her. This woman who'd been my friend for 30 years. Or are you trying to help yourselves? Derek stood up. This is insane. You can't just cut me out like this. I haven't cut you out of anything, Derek. I've protected something that was never yours to begin with. Mom would be furious with you. Your mother, I said quietly, would be ashamed of you. His face went red. You're making a huge mistake. That property is worth $800,000, and you're just going to throw it away on some stupid trust? The property, Sarah interjected, is worth whatever Mrs. Chen says it's worth, and she's decided its value lies in preservation, not profit. Who's the trustee? Linda asked. Her voice had gone cold. Who did you give it to instead of family? James Peterson, I said. The caretaker. Derek laughed. A harsh, ugly sound. The handyman? You gave our family property to the handyman? He's not a handyman. He's the person who's cared for that land for 15 years. He's the person Robert trusted. He's the person who'll make sure it stays wild and beautiful, the way it's meant to be. You're out of your mind. Derek started pacing. This is elder abuse. We should contest this. Linda, back me up here. Linda was staring at me. Maggie, please. Think about what you're doing. I have thought about it. For weeks. While you both pressured me, manipulated me, tried to make me feel incompetent and alone, I kept my voice steady. I know about the debt, Derek. The gambling. I know you're desperate. He stopped pacing. You investigated me? I protected myself. There's a difference. Sarah pulled another document from the folder. There's one more thing, Mr. Chen. During the title search for the trust, we discovered something interesting. Someone attempted to file a fraudulent power of attorney document 3 weeks ago. It was rejected due to improper notarization, but the signature was a clear forgery. Derek went pale. The signature, Sarah continued, was meant to be Mrs. Chen's. The notary's office has the original document. They're quite interested in pursuing forgery charges, given that this appears to be attempted financial exploitation of an elderly person. I didn't, Derek started. The handwriting analysis is quite conclusive. We have samples of your handwriting from the apartment lease Mrs. Chen co-signed. It's a match. The room felt airless. Linda was staring at Derek, her face stricken. Derek, she whispered, you said we were just going to convince her. You said it was for her own good. You never said anything about, shut up, Linda. But it was too late. Sarah was taking notes. I was watching my nephew. This boy I'd helped raise. This man who'd tried to steal from me. And feeling nothing but a hollow sadness. Get out, I said quietly. Aunt Maggie. Get out, both of you. Linda was crying. Derek was red-faced, his hands clenched into fists. But they left. After they were gone, Sarah poured me a glass of water. My hands were shaking. Are you pressing charges? She asked. I thought about it. About the years of helping Derek, always believing he'd eventually find his way. About 30 years with Linda, all the moments we'd shared. Not Linda, I said finally. She's weak, but she's not evil. Derek used her. And Derek? File a police report. Let them decide. Sarah nodded. For what it's worth, Margaret, you did the right thing. Then why does it feel so awful? Because you're human. Because you loved them. Because they betrayed that love. She paused. But you protected something important. Something bigger than their greed. That matters. The following weekend, I drove up to the cabin. James was already there, his truck parked in the driveway. I could see him on the dock with two little girls, maybe 7 and 9, teaching them how to bait a hook. I walked down to join them. The girls looked up at me with curious eyes. "Mrs. Chen," James said, "these are my granddaughters, Emma and Sophie. Girls, this is the lady I told you about, the one who's letting us stay at this beautiful place." "Hi," Emma said shyly. Sophie, the older one, pointed at the water. "Grandpa says there might be eagles." "There are," I told her. "In that tall pine over there. If you're very quiet in the morning, you can watch them fish." We sat there together as the sun began to set, painting the lake in shades of rose and gold. The loon called again, that wild, lonely sound that had always seemed to belong to Robert and me. But maybe, I thought, watching James help his granddaughters cast their lines, maybe it could belong to them too. Maybe this place could mean something to these girls, the way it had meant something to Robert and me. Maybe they'd grow up knowing what it felt like to watch eagles hunt, to swim in water so clear you could see the rocks below, to understand that some things are more valuable than money. "Thank you," James said quietly, "for trusting me with this." "Thank you," I replied, "for being trustworthy," Emma squealed. Something had taken her bait. James moved to help her, patient and encouraging. And I thought about Derek, who would never understand what he'd lost. Not the money, the chance to be part of something good, something real. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "Please, Maggie, can we talk?" I deleted it. Maybe someday, but not yet. The wound was too fresh. The girls landed a small perch, which James carefully unhooked and released. They clapped and laughed, and the sound carried across the water like a promise. This, I thought, this is what matters. Robert's cabin, our cabin, would endure. Not as a commodity to be sold or divided or fought over, but as a place where children learned to fish, where eagles nested in tall pines, where the water reflected the sky in shades of impossible beauty. I'd protected what was ours, and in doing so, I'd given it to the people who would truly cherish it. The loon called again, and this time, I smiled.